Welcome back to Vox in a Box, the podcast that puts a voice in comics. I'm your host, Michael Corley. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we are covering Classic X-Men number 83. In this 83rd episode of Vox in a Box, it is titled, What Happened to Kitty? We open with a wedding. But not a normal wedding and not a normal ceremony. The bride is being brought before the groom in a deep underground sewer. It is the lair of the Morlocks, the mutants, outcasts, too different, too strange to live above ground. And who are they bringing to be married? But a barely conscious Kitty Pryde. But we cut to Bellevue Hospital. We see Wolverine, Storm, and Rogue. They are in their street clothes. The coroner pulls back the sheet and says, "This is Kitty Pryde." Storm, upon seeing the face of the girl that she's come to almost think of as a daughter, suddenly lightning out of a clear blue sky fires above the building. The coroner looks up and thinks, "This is incredible. I've never seen anything, heard anything like this." And Wolverine quietly says, "Why don't you go treat yourself to a look?" And the coroner's like, I can't leave bodies alone. And Wolverine, in his voice that brooks no argument, "This once, bend him a little." The coroner decides maybe 5 minutes will be okay. He does anything to get away from this man who clearly is willing to kill. As the coroner leaves, Wolverine turns to the others and says, "This ain't Kitty Pryde. It looks like her. It looks exactly like her. But it isn't." He knows the smell of Kitty Pryde. He can tell a dozen other clues. He himself has set up scams where one body has been exchanged for another. And this is not the girl that they know. Back at the X-Men mansion, Colossus, whose body has been transmuted into a kind of ice-like stone, is being monitored by Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler, who we've recently learned, out of nowhere, has medical training, is checking out Peter's vital functions. He can't find any heartbeat, but the truth is he doesn't actually know if Colossus has a heartbeat in his armored form. But even more of a worry is the deep cracks running all throughout his body. Even if Colossus is alive, if he reverts to his human form, he will almost instantly die from the massive wounds and lacerations that he sustained in this accident. We cut to Kitty Pryde. She is in a half-dreamlike state. She's in a beautiful room filled with her friends, her family, her loved ones. A handsome prince has come to marry her, but when she looks up, she sees the ugly, skull-like, bug-eyed face of Caliban, and she screams, "Get away from me!" She comes to her full senses and realizes that she's surrounded by the Morlocks. She tries to phase away, but something is inhibiting her powers. If we have not already, will find out that that is the Morlock known as Leech, a young child with green skin who is able to negate other mutants' powers. Kitty is, of course, saying to everyone, Storm is the leader of the Morlocks. She's not going to take very kindly to me being kidnapped. But Callisto is saying, we haven't broken any of her rules. Did you, or did you not, agree to live with Caliban forever if he helped you last time you were down here? And Kitty has no choice but to admit, yes, she did. Caliban, of course, wants Kitty to stay with him, but he's also so sad that his very image disgusts her. And Callisto is enjoying the heck out of this because however painful this is makes it even sweeter for her because she knows that every moment of pain that is caused to Kitty will in some point in the future hurt Storm, the woman who humiliated her and took her leadership of the Morlocks. Kitty is so scared she runs into the sewer, but she falls. She falls and scrapes herself up badly. Why? Because, again, the mutant known as Leech is near her. He is misshapen himself, reptile-like, and seems very sad. He picks her up by his hand and leads her back to the Morlocks. And Mask, The mutant with the ability to change other people's facial features decides to have some fun. He touches Kitty Pryde, first turning her face to a misshapen version of his own, then to Callisto, then to Caliban, then to Storm, and then to a shapeless, faceless thing. When he changes her back, she calls out, "Stop it! I'm not your toy to be played with." Mask is furious. He grabs her face and squeezes. Her face becomes a misshapen, bulbous lump without a nose or a mouth. She's beginning to choke. Callisto orders him to put her back the way she was. She doesn't want her to die. She wants Kitty to stay here forever as Caliban's wife. Callisto begins the wedding ceremony, but it's interrupted by the X-Men. How did the X-Men figure it out? Storm ran through the list. Which of the mutants that they had encountered before, who had the ability to change other people's face, such as Mask, and the last time they were down here, Wolverine was not with them. They didn't know about his super senses. Otherwise, they would have realized, he would have most likely realized the other body was a fake. Storm, Wolverine, and Rogue are here to take Kitty back. Kitty's trying to tell them, no, I'm here of my own free will. They did kidnap me, but I'm here to stay. Storm doesn't want to listen. She electrifies Callisto with her lightning. But on the command of Callisto, Leech leaps forward and instantly Storm's powers negate. Rogue and Wolverine go into the battle, and Kitty is trying to warn them about Leech's power-stealing powers. But too late. As they get near, Rogue falls out of the air. Wolverine, though, says, "My claws are not a mutant power." Which, by the way, when we do our retconning, they actually are. But it's okay. They're sort of mechanical now. Even with his powers negated, he's still able to extend them. He prepares to kill Leech. But Kitty leaps forward, grabs Wolverine's arm, and says, "Stop it! Everyone stop fighting! I am here of my own free will. I made a promise to stay with Caliban, and I will keep it." With the fight stopping, they now get down to business, mainly finding the one person who might be able to help Colossus, and that is the healer. When Callisto had fought Storm, she had been stabbed through the heart. She would have died within seconds. But the Morlocks have a mutant with the ability to heal any physical wound. The X-Men have a plan. It's incredibly risky, but they've got to try. Rogue takes off her glove, leans forward, and touches the frozen, screaming form of Colossus. The pain is excruciating because as she absorbs his power, she absorbs it as it is at this moment. Her body is transmuting to stone. The pain is almost unimaginable. Peter instantly begins to bleed from dozens of lacerations. He's going to die within seconds. But of course, the Morlock healer grabs him, holds him, and his wounds begin to heal. He's still very badly wounded, but he's going to live. Back down in the sewers, Kitty returns. She's going to keep her promise. She's going to stay with Caliban forever. Caliban looks into Kitty's eyes. He sees the resignation, the sadness, the misery of the uncounted years under the ground, away from the sun, away from her friends. And Caliban looks up. He calls out to all of the other Morlocks, "Kitty Pryde is free. She may go. I release her from her promise." Kitty doesn't understand, and he says, "Do you love Caliban?" And she says, "No." And he says, I love you, and I hope someday you will return of your own free will, but I cannot force you. My love for you is too strong to force you to stay with me." She says, I don't love you, Caliban, but I do consider you to be a friend." Caliban reaches forward and he presses something into her hand as he walks back to join the Morlocks. And he says, "Keep this and remember me, that when you think of me, that I will not be a monster, but a prince." And she looks down into her hand in what was to be a wedding gift to her, a single red rose. And that ends Classic X-Men number 83. I'm sure you're totally shocked that both Colossus and Kitty Pryde are not dead. Duh. I hope you've had a good time listening. You have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon.